of committee business, and
Oh,
after
very
that
good.
we will go into camera. So
Okay.
the floor is yours with respect to the motion that you've brought to the committee.
Well, thank you very much. I wasn't aware of that nuance, Chair. Thank you for that. Yes, I have a motion that I've given notice on Friday, and I think I've talked to some members of the committee regarding it. And it has to do with the ongoing discussions and negotiations between Canada and the UK for a trade agreement, which is, moving apace apparently, and the situation with Ireland and the Good Friday Agreement. And I'll just read the motion out for the benefit of those who are watching. The motion is that the committee recognize, one, the long-standing cultural, familial, political, and economic connections between Canada and the people of both the Republic of Ireland and the United Kingdom, and the important role, number two, played by Canada in negotiating the Good Friday Agreement and ensuring that the commitments laid out in the treaty were implemented, and three, that the decision by the United Kingdom to leave the European Union could affect the Good Friday Agreement and the provision in it regarding the border between the Republic of Ireland and the UK, and that the committee call on the government of Canada, that is, to ensure that any post-Brexit trade deal between Canada and the United Kingdom be consistent with the principles of the Good Friday Accord Agreement. And the committee report this motion to the House, and pursuant to Standing Order 109, request the government table a comprehensive response to the report. I won't say a lot about it, except to reiterate that we understand that there may be some agreement now taking place, but the details of which are not fully known. But the important point to make is that there was some concern expressed very strongly recently that the disruption of that agreement may be possible. We wouldn't want Canada to play any role in exacerbating that or interfering with this agreement, which is extremely important to the future of the peace process in Ireland. It's a statement of principle, not a detail, other than to say that Canada should not do any harm in these circumstances and do everything possible to ensure the upholding of that accord. So I just state it simply in that way. It is a foreign affairs matter in a general way and a principle, although it's obviously it reflects on a trade situation, but I think it's a matter of principle that our committee hopefully will be able to have a consensus determination on.
Mr. Harris, thank you very much. And I would encourage members to avail themselves of the raise hand feature on Zoom. And for those in the room, if you could signal to Madam Clerk, Monsieur Bergeron, if you have comments you'd like to make, that we can put you into the sequence of people requesting to speak. I see that Mr. Chong has raised his hand first, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank Mr. Harris for introducing this well-worded motion. I will be supporting it. I think it's a topical issue because of the recent announcement by the Government of Canada that it has concluded a Canada-UK trade continuity agreement with the United Kingdom. We haven't seen the text of that agreement or the detailed legislation implementing that agreement. So I think it's a timely motion for the committee to adopt to make it clear to the government where we stand on the issue. I think it's been long-standing Canadian government policy to support the principles of the Good Friday Agreement. Canada was instrumental in helping negotiate and implement that agreement some 20 years ago. Obviously, Brexit has implications for the UK Republic of Ireland border, and I think whatever trade continuity agreement or subsequent full trade agreements that may be negotiated in the future should be consistent with the principles of that Good Friday Agreement. So thank Mr. Harris for introducing that motion, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Mr. Chong, thank you very much. And Mr. Harris, just to clarify, it's correct that this motion is currently also before the International Trade Committee?
Yes, a similar motion has been put there. Whether they're going to be dealing with it as efficiently as our committee, I'm told that may not happen. But I'm not privy to all the details of that. It's uncertain. But I thank you for putting it on the agenda in the public meeting for this purpose. And I think you know, it's this, we can do this independently. They may be more caught up in process and other issues, as Mr. Chong pointed out, looking for details as to what Canada is doing. This is something that's separate, and I think we should do it on our own, regardless of what happens in the Trade Committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Oliphant.
Sorry, just had to get off mute. Thanks, and I think very similar to Mr. Chong, I am predisposed to support this motion. I am just wanting to make sure that we are not out of step with trade, and I recognize the difference between trade and their role in wanting to make sure that it is the process and the procedures and those sorts of things, and how it could affect Canada and our continuation agreement with the UK. We have a foreign policy perspective, which I think Mr. Harris has rightly indicated that is our role. I also, recognize that we were, I'm going to steal Mr. Chong's wording from another committee. We were witness to this, but more than witness to this. We were with Chastellain's involvement in this. We have a real Canadian stake in the accord that a Canadian really brokered, and I think we understand that. So I think we're predisposed to be in favor of it. However, I have heard that it was being discussed at Trade today. I think it would just be a little awkward if one committee said yes to something in public and one committee said no to something in public. I just like being on the same page. When something goes to two places at the same time, it just is a little bit awkward. So I'm wondering if our clerk has any information on whether or not Trade is, I don't follow their schedule, whether it's meeting today, whether they have met, whether they have dealt with this or not dealt with it. But all that being said is, when it comes to a vote, I think me and I suspect our side is predisposed to support it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliphant. Let's turn it over to our clerk for a brief intervention on the dynamics of this and what options there might be for us within the parameters of this week to act in accordance with the sentiments expressed by Mr. Oliphant and Mr. Chong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not know if Trade has dealt with the motion. I will reach out to the clerk. Their next meeting is on Friday, though. So
either way, unless we get a signal from them informally on how the dynamics are going, we would not get their answer prior to ours or with ours. Okay, are there other views on anybody who hasn't spoken yet? If not, I think Mr. Harris has this, Mr. Chong and Mr. Harris, I think in sequence here.
Yeah, just to maybe help the conversation, the debate along. I note that the Prime Minister indicated. I note that this motion is consistent with what the Prime Minister said to his Irish counterpart about a year ago when they were discussing Brexit. In the readout, the Prime Minister noted that the Prime Minister noted the implications for Ireland of the United Kingdom's withdrawal from the European Union, and they agreed on the fundamental importance of protecting the Good Friday Agreement. So that was clear that they discussed that matter, and I think this motion is consistent with the Liberal government's position on not only the trade deal, but on their belief in adhering to the principles of the Good Friday Agreement. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that comment that had been put out there almost 2 years ago by the Canadian Prime Minister.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chong. Mr. Harris?
Yes, I think I'm in favor of moving on this today and to a vote as soon as possible, because I think, first of all, we want to report to the House. If we leave this till Friday, obviously we won't be able to report to the House. So we would like to make it a statement that can be tabled in the House and as quickly as possible, so that the principle is on the table. And I think it's people in Ireland have been nervous about what's been going on for the last while with Brexit situation and the concerns that it might undermine the very important agreement. And as was pointed out, Mr. General de Chastelain was extremely involved in brokering an important part of the deal, and very active in implementation, the decommissioning of weaponry, which was extremely important in achieving the lasting peace that that we seem to have had up until now. And I think that this would provide some reassurance to that process, that Canada it wants to make sure and affirm that this is the principles should not be interfered with the trade deal or any arrangement. And I think that that would be a positive thing. As far as what the Trade Committee is doing, I don't think I think we can certainly take the lead on principle in terms of trade. That they may want to make some specific reference to that particular deal, but this is really about making sure that the principle that we are espousing here is something that is consistent with Canada's position, and the fact that a committee of Foreign Affairs Committee presents this view, has this view and presents to the House, I think is a positive thing, and we should be there. I know it's the kind of the 11th hour in a sense, but if we don't do it now, I don't think we'll be able to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I have Dr. Fry and then Monsieur Bergeron.
Thank you, Chair. I am, and I want to re-echo what Rob said, though, because actually re-echo is a redundancy, sorry. I want to echo what Rob said. I think that I am really concerned that we may come up with something and put the Trade Committee in a difficult position in case we overreach or whatever. I don't know. Is it possible, perhaps, to find a way to resolve this, that the clerk can find out from her counterpart in trade, Standing Committee on Trade, whether they intend to say anything or do anything with regard to this, or whether they mind if we say or do something in regard to this. Then we clear it up and we don't have two standing committees saying and doing different things at the same time. Just clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fry. Mr. Bergeron.
Mr. Chair, it seems to me to be another of these rather strange situations where the debate never ends, even though we're all in agreement. So I'm asking for a vote.
Okay. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bergeron.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bergeron.
Dilatory at this point.
If I could help, it would be helpful, Chair. I could. I'd like to point one thing out.
Let's see if that's procedurally in order. I just want to find out if Monsieur Bergeron's motion is now dilatory in the sense that it adjourns debate, or can we continue discussion?
You can certainly continue discussion if people would like to speak.
I didn't make a motion.
Okay. Mr. Harris, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out for those who may be concerned about doing something inconsistent with the Trade Committee, the only actual motion here, aside from the preambles, is that the committee calls upon the government to ensure that any post-Brexit trade deal between Canada and the United Kingdom be consistent with the principles of the Good Friday Agreement. Surely the Trade Committee would not be coming up with anything different than that, or they may do something beyond that. But this is a basic principle that I think we should have no difficulty running afoul of the Trade Committee.
Okay, have we exhausted views? Anybody else want to come in on this? Mr. Oliphant.
As I said, I'm predisposed to do it. My dilemma is there's an interpretive nature to something being consistent with something. And I am not, we can do this, absolutely, Jack, Mr. Harris and I think that we should have something that's consistent. I don't know how you measure that. I don't know how that is, something is consistent in the eyes of whom. So that being said, and I just want that on the record, that it's a very difficult thing to determine whether something is consistent with an international agreement, because that would have to be adjudicated in some way. But that being said, I'm fine to go with this, and we move on, because I don't think it is. I don't think it's a big issue.
Okay. Any other views? Okay. In that case, let's move to a vote. All those in favor, Madam Clerk, just before we go there, you've signaled that unless we have unanimous consent, we need a recorded division. Is that correct? Let me just ask: is there unanimous consent to adopt Mr. Harris's motion?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, why do we need unanimous consent?
I will need the assistance of the clerk to answer that. I think there's a motion that we passed previously that requires that, Madam Clerk.
Yes, thank you. As per the terms of the motion adopted on September 23rd in the House concerning voting in hybrid committees.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Do I have unanimous consent to adopt Mr. Harris's motion? Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, by unanimous consent, Mr. Harris's motion has been adopted. Congratulations, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, colleague. Thank you, Chair.
I think this concludes the public portion of our committee business. If I can ask your indulgence for what I hope will be not much more than maybe another 20 minutes or so of discussion. I won't prejudge. We have till 5:30 in the in-camera setting, and the link is in your inbox. We will take a few minutes to reconnect in camera. Thank you so much.